The twin moons of Lithara rose slowly above the horizon, bathing the valley in soft blue light. Their glow spread across the empty fields, the stone walls, the watching towers, and the distant forests where shadows moved like silent animals. The night looked peaceful from far away. But Daniel Reed knew better. Peace was only a thin layer covering the fear that had been growing since sunset. Daniel stood at the outer gate of the royal shelter, gripping his rifle with calm focus. He had been a human soldier for 8 years, and he had served on different alien worlds. But this world felt different. Lithara was beautiful, but danger always lurked near its forests. Creatures and raiders hid among the tall, dark trees, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And tonight, they had chosen their moment. A crashed convoy still burned beyond the hills. Smoke drifted upward, like thin gray fingers. The air carried a metallic scent from the destroyed transport ship. Everything felt tense, as if the whole planet was holding its breath. Daniel did not look away from the tree line. He kept scanning for movement, anything unusual. His helmet visor displayed faint heat signatures far in the distance. The enemy was out there. They had attacked earlier. They would attack again. Behind him, the shelter gates hummed gently as they opened. Princess Seralia stepped through. Her pale violet robes glowed softly under the moonlight. Her long silver hair fell over her shoulders in calm waves, though her face showed quiet worry. Her silver eyes, bright as polished metal, searched the horizon as if she could somehow see the danger Daniel already sensed. She stopped a few steps behind him. "You are still here," she said softly. Daniel nodded without looking back. "Yes, Your Highness." She walked closer, her footsteps light against the stone ground. "You should be inside the inner barrier with the others." "With respect," Daniel said, "that's not my place." She studied his still posture for a moment. "My guards should be standing where you stand." Her voice shook slightly, but they all left, every single one. Finally, Daniel turned. In her eyes, he saw not anger, not bitterness, just sadness. Deep and quiet. He had heard the stories earlier. Her elite guards had fled when the raiders first attacked the convoy. They had sworn loyalty to her since her childhood. Yet when danger came close, they disappeared into the woods without waiting for orders. Daniel didn't judge them out loud, but he understood her pain. Being abandoned by the people, meant to protect you, left a sharp wound that took time to heal. "I'm not your guard," Daniel said carefully, "but I'm a soldier, and soldiers stand their ground." She tilted her head slightly. "But you owe nothing to me or my house. Why stay?" Daniel breathed slowly. How could he explain something that simple? "Because someone needs to protect you tonight, and I'm here. That's enough." For the first time, a faint warmth touched her expression. Most would run. He looked back toward the trees. "I'm not most." A faint rustle echoed from the forest. Daniel stiffened. Seralia followed his gaze. "They are returning," she whispered. "That's what I expect," he replied. She moved closer, her voice trembling. Daniel's tone stayed firm and calm. "Then they will have to face me first." Seralia stared at him. She was used to guards who feared death, who hesitated, who always spoke about retreat or negotiation. Daniel's words sounded completely different. "You should go inside the barrier," he said quietly. She did not move. "You will be alone out here. I'll manage." "Daniel." Her voice almost broke. "I don't want you to die for me." He turned, his expression softer now. "I'm not planning to die. I just don't leave people behind." She swallowed hard. Her hands tightened at her sides. For a moment, she simply looked at him. This strange human who had arrived only weeks ago, yet cared more than her own trained defenders. Then a loud cracking sound came from the forest. Daniel's head snapped toward the noise. His visor flashed warning signals. "They're close," he muttered. Seralia stepped back but didn't retreat into the shelter. She stayed near the gate where she could still see him. Daniel raised his rifle. The air grew colder. The night grew heavier. Shapes moved in the shadows. The raiders stepped from the tree line, dark figures wearing dull black armor with glowing red visors. Their weapons hummed as they activated. Daniel counted 5, then 7, then 9 total. "Inside," he said again without turning his head. But she whispered, "I will remain where you can see me." Daniel didn't argue. He only kept his stance steady and his breathing calm. The raiders paused. They seemed confused to see only one man guarding the entrance. One shouted something in a harsh alien tongue and pointed toward Seralia behind the half-lit barrier. Daniel stepped directly into their line of sight. No. The moment stretched long and tense. The first raider charged. Daniel ducked aside and struck the raider's helmet with the rifle's butt. The raider stumbled and fell. 2 more ran at him from opposite sides. Daniel moved faster than they expected. That side. 2 more ran it in 4 meted. Daniel moved faster than they expected. Daniel moved faster 1 more meted. He blocked 1 blow with his arm and kicked the second raider off balance. His movements were sharp, trained, and focused. Inside the barrier, Seralia gasped softly. She clutched the edge of the glowing shield, watching him fight completely alone. Another raider lifted a compact device. The explosion released a burst of blinding white light and deafening noise. Daniel crashed to the ground, dizzy, ears ringing, vision shaking. He tried to push up, but the world spun. Seralia cried out, her voice filled with panic. "Daniel!" He forced his arms to move. Even half-stunned, he refused to stay down. He blinked hard, trying to clear his vision. The raiders saw his struggle and moved toward the gate. Their movements were quick, confident. Daniel shook his head violently, forcing the haze away. His heart pounded fast, but his mind stayed focused. He grabbed his rifle, rolled, and pushed himself to his feet. A raider reached for the barrier's control panel. Daniel fired a warning, shot inches from the raider's hand. The raider jumped back in surprise. The group hesitated. The human soldier was still standing. Daniel caught his breath and stepped forward again. His legs were unsteady, but his voice was strong. Not a step closer. The raiders exchanged glances. One shouted another order. They attacked again. Daniel fought with every bit of strength left. He dodged, blocked, and countered. One raider tackled him from behind. Daniel slammed his elbow back, freeing himself. Another raider swung a metal staff toward his chest. Daniel twisted aside just in time, feeling the heat of the weapon pass his ribs. Seralia felt her heart ache at every strike Daniel took. She wanted to scream for help, wanted to run to him, but she knew she could only watch. The raiders circled him. Their numbers were too many. Daniel breathed heavily, sweat sliding down his face. But he refused to step back. He threw himself into the fight again, striking, dodging, blocking with pure determination. Each movement came from instinct and will. He was fighting not for honor, not for orders, but for her. For the princess standing behind him, the princess abandoned by her own guards. Finally, the raiders pulled away. They had expected an easy capture. They had not expected one human to stand against 9 armed attackers without fear. One raider pointed toward the forest, giving the retreat signal. Within seconds, they vanished into the shadows again. The forest fell silent once more. Daniel stood breathing hard, his body tense. His arm throbbed painfully where he had blocked earlier blows. His ears still rang faintly, but he stayed upright. Slowly, Seralia ran out from behind the barrier toward him. She stopped a step away, her eyes wide with worry. "Are you hurt?" "A little," he admitted. "Nothing serious." Her silver eyes softened in a way he had never seen before. "I have never seen anyone fight like that. Why?" Why risk so much? Daniel looked at her, his voice quiet but steady. You do not even know me well, she whispered. He gave a faint smile. I know enough. Her breath caught slightly. She stepped a little closer. My people abandoned me, yet you stood firm, even when you were alone. I don't abandon people, he said gently. That's not who I am. Something warm and fragile spread across her expression, respect, gratitude, and maybe something deeper she didn't fully understand yet. She lowered her voice. I trust you, Daniel. He felt something shift inside him too, something he couldn't explain. The night wind grew calmer, the moons shone brighter, and although the raiders would surely return, something new had begun, something strong, something unspoken between a human soldier who refused to run and a princess who finally found someone who would not leave her behind. The forest remained silent for several long minutes after the raiders fled. The only sound was Daniel's steady breathing and the soft rustle of the princess's robe as she stepped closer to him. The night air felt cold against his skin, but he didn't let it show. He kept his eyes on the dark tree line, scanning for any sign of movement. Saralia watched him with concern and quiet admiration. She had seen warriors fight before, but none had fought with the same determination Daniel had shown. None had stood firm when others ran. Daniel finally lowered his weapon. They'll come again, he said. His voice was low, but steady. Saralia nodded. Yes. They have hunted me for weeks. They want you alive, he guessed. She looked away for a moment. My bloodline carries a rare ability. Some believe it can unlock old powers. The raiders want to use me for that. And personed. Bloodline. Daniel frowned. So it's not just about ransom or politics. No, she whispered. It is far worse. Daniel tightened his grip on his rifle. Then we'll stop them. She looked at him with gentle disbelief. You keep saying we, but you are alone. Daniel shook his head. I'm here. That's enough for now. 4. Her hand rose slightly, as if she wanted to touch his arm, but she hesitated and let it fall. You should rest, she said softly. I will when you're safe, he replied. A soft glow spread across the ground as the barrier reactivated fully. The remaining 2 elite guards inside the shelter peered out, ashamed to show their faces. They hadn't stepped out once during the fight. Daniel noticed their fear, but didn't comment. Their actions spoke clearly. Saralia turned back to the inner shelter. Come, she said gently. Let me check your injuries. Daniel shook his head. I'm fine. She gave him a small, determined look. You are not, and I insist. He hesitated, then sighed. All right, but only for a minute. Rye. Inside the inner chamber, the air felt warmer. Soft lights pulsed along the walls, giving the room a calm and peaceful glow. Saralia guided Daniel to a stone seat and found a small healing kit. Her motions were gentle and careful. Daniel sat silently while she worked. She cleaned a cut near his cheek and wrapped a band around his arm where he had taken a hard hit. Her fingers were cold, but steady. You fight with such purpose, she whispered. But what drives you? Daniel looked at the floor for a second before answering. I've seen people get hurt because no one stepped in. I promised myself I'd never let that happen again. Saralia paused. A promise made alone is often the strongest kind. He didn't answer, but she could tell her words affected him. When she finished bandaging him, she stepped back. There, she said softly. Better? Much better, he replied. They held each other's eyes for a moment, but the quiet didn't last long. A deep rumble echoed through the ground. Daniel immediately stood. That wasn't thunder. Saralia's face grew pale. That sound. I know it. The raiders used tunneling beasts, They can dig beneath barriers. Daniel's jaw tightened. They're trying to come from below. The elite guards inside panicked. One shouted, "We must escape. We must flee before they breach the ground." Seralia turned sharply toward them. "We are not running." But the guards had already grabbed their gear and moved toward a side exit. They didn't even look at her. Daniel stepped in front of them. "You leave now, and she's defenseless." One guard pushed past him, trembling. Daniel didn't chase them. He only watched them disappear into the night, their footsteps fading. Seralia stood frozen, hurt filling her eyes again. Daniel approached her slowly. "You're not alone. I'm still here. Fordom." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded, her voice soft. "Yes, you are." Another rumble shook the ground. The stone floor vibrated. Dust fell from the ceiling. "They're close," Daniel said. "Very close." Without thinking, he grabbed Seralia's hand. "We need to move to the central chamber. It's reinforced." Her eyes widened at the sudden touch, but she didn't pull away. She followed him quickly, her small hand tightening slightly around his. They reached the central chamber, a room with thick walls and a reinforced metal floor. Daniel closed the door behind them. The ground shook again, harder this time. The lights flickered. "They're almost through," Seralia said. Daniel searched the room for anything useful. "Is there another way out?" No. This is the safest place, but not unbreakable." He moved to stand between her and the floor. "Then I'll stop whatever comes through." Seralia stepped closer. "Daniel, if they break through, they will come in numbers. You cannot win alone." Daniel didn't look away from the floor. "I don't need to win. I just need to keep you alive." She swallowed hard, her heart beating fast. "Why do you protect me with such intensity? Why do you look at me like my life matters more than your own?" Daniel turned his head slightly. "Because it does." Her breath caught. For a moment, she couldn't speak. She could only stare at him, this human who valued her life without reward, without hesitation, without fear. The floor cracked. A long, jagged line spread across the metal surface. Something massive slammed from below. Daniel pushed Seralia behind him. "Stay back," he whispered. The floor burst open with a loud screeching sound as a monstrous creature climbed through a tunneling beast with thick armored plates and glowing yellow eyes. Its mouth opened wide, rows of sharp teeth dripping with saliva. Behind it, two raiders emerged through the hole, ready to capture Seralia. Daniel didn't waste a second. He fired his rifle at the beast's eyes. The creature roared, shaking the chamber walls. Daniel dodged a swipe from its massive claw and rolled to the right. Seralia watched in horror as the beast charged again. Daniel grabbed a metal pole lying on the floor and thrust it toward the creature's open mouth, forcing it to bite down on the metal instead of him. The impact shook his arms painfully, but he held firm. The beast reared back, trying to crush him. Daniel used the moment to grab a broken power cable and strike it against the beast's armored side. Sparks flew. The beast screamed again. The two raiders climbed fully into the chamber. One pointed at Seralia, shouting to capture her. Daniel whipped around, firing a shot that struck the raider's shoulder, sending him crashing into the wall. The second raider darted forward. Seralia stepped back until her back hit the chamber wall. Daniel rushed between them, blocking the attack. The raider swung a blade, and Daniel caught the raider's arm, twisting it until the weapon clattered to the ground. The beast roared again behind him. Daniel shoved the raider away and ducked as the creature lunged. He grabbed a loose section of metal flooring and slammed it into the beast's snout. Seralia felt tears rising. "Daniel, stop! You'll be hurt." "I'm fine," he shouted back. The beast charged once more, but this time Daniel sidestepped and aimed for the weak joint between its plates. He fired 3 rapid shots. The creature roared, stumbling. Daniel grabbed the damaged power cable again and jabbed it into the opening between its plates. Electricity surged through the creature's body. The beast shrieked, then collapsed, shaking the entire chamber as it fell. The last raider hesitated, realizing the human was too dangerous to fight alone. He leapt back through the hole and vanished into the tunnel. Silence followed. Daniel stood panting, bruised, and exhausted. Smoke curled from the creature's body. Saralya ran to him, placing her hands on his shoulders. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head. "Just tired." She stared at him with deep emotion. "You fought a beast and 2 raiders alone. No one has ever done that for me." Daniel wiped sweat from his brow. "I told you, I'm not leaving." Her voice softened. "But why? Why risk so much for me?" Daniel met her eyes. "Because you matter. Because your life is worth protecting. Because you deserve someone who doesn't run." Her silver eyes trembled. She took a step closer. "You are different from every person I have ever known." Daniel smiled faintly. "Good different, I hope." She nodded slowly. "Very good." The room grew quiet. The danger had passed for now, but the bond between them had deepened. Something fragile yet powerful began forming, something neither of them fully understood yet, but both felt strongly. Daniel looked at the broken floor. Saralya whispered, "Then we will face them together." Daniel turned to her. "Together?" "Yes," she said firmly. "I trust you. More than anyone." Daniel took a slow breath. Then, "I'm not leaving your side." Outside, the wind grew colder. The raiders prepared for their next move. But inside the chamber, something unbreakable had begun. Something stronger than fear. Stronger than abandonment. A human soldier who refused to run. And a princess who finally found someone who would stand for her. The night outside the shelter had grown colder, darker, and quieter. It was the kind of quiet that did not bring peace, but instead warned of danger still waiting in the shadows. Daniel stood at the broken floor of the central chamber, staring into the large hole left behind by the destroyed tunneling beast. The tunnel stretched deep into darkness. Lines of claw marks carved into the walls. The raiders would not give up. They had failed twice now, but failure only made them more determined. Saralya stepped beside him, her silver eyes reflecting the dim lights of the chamber. She looked tired, but her posture remained firm. Daniel nodded. "Yes. And when they come, they won't hold back." "What will they try next?" she asked quietly. "Maybe a direct assault. Maybe more beasts. Maybe another team of raiders." Saralya's hands clasped together. "We cannot wait for them inside a broken shelter. The barrier is weak, and the guards have abandoned us. If the raiders arrive with a full force, they will overwhelm this place." Daniel knew she was right. The shelter had been designed to give her time to escape with loyal guards, not to withstand a full siege. But she had no guards left. Only him. End quote. "We need to move," Daniel said. "But not blindly. We need a plan." Saralya looked up at him. "Where will we go?" "The outpost on the ridge," he replied. "It's heavily fortified. Once we reach it, you'll be safe until reinforcements arrive." Her gaze softened. "And you? Will you be safe?" Daniel smiled faintly. "If you're safe, I'm safe." She lowered her head for a moment, touched by his words. When she looked up again, determination filled her expression. "Very well. We will leave this place together." Daniel began gathering gear, spare power packs, a portable shield generator, and a small medkit. Saralya helped by collecting the few supplies that remained undamaged. The shelter lights flickered again. A loud rumble echoed from outside. Saralya tensed. "They are here already." Daniel peered through a small viewing slit in the wall. In the distance, Glowing red visors moved like fireflies in the shadows. There were more raiders this time, 20, maybe more. Their weapons burned with bright energy. They were moving fast. "They're surrounding us," Daniel said. "We don't have long." Saralya touched his arm gently. "Daniel, are you afraid?" He looked at her with calm eyes. "No, I'm thinking." "What are you thinking?" He glanced at the broken floor. "They expect us to defend and hide. They don't expect us to escape through their own tunnel." Her eyes widened. "You want to go down there?" "It's the only path they won't block," Daniel said. "It leads into the forest. We can lose them in the tunnels, and then climb out far from their troops." Saralya hesitated, staring into the darkness of the tunnel below. The idea of entering the same passage used by a beast frightened her, but she trusted Daniel more than her own fear. "I will follow you," she whispered. "Wherever you go." Daniel nodded. "Then stay close." He lowered himself into the tunnel first, landing softly on the dirt floor. He extended his hand upward. Saralya took it gently and climbed down, her light steps barely making a sound. When her feet touched the floor, Daniel positioned himself in front of her again. The tunnel was long and dim, lit only by faint bioluminescent moss. Strange sounds echoed in the distance: drips of water, distant growls, shifting gravel. Saralya moved close behind him. "Do you know the way?" "Not exactly," Daniel said. "But every tunnel has an exit. We'll find ours." They moved slowly, listening carefully. Above them, muffled footsteps and shouts echoed through the shelter. The raiders had entered the outer chamber. Soon, they would realize the princess and the human were gone. Daniel quickened his pace. "We need to be far before they discover the tunnel." Saralya kept close, her breathing soft but steady. The deeper they went, the stranger the tunnel became. The walls shook occasionally, reminding them the earth above was unstable. Saralya whispered, "Daniel, do you trust me?" "No, 10. I was. He glanced back. "Of course." "Then listen. I know something about these tunnels." She pointed to the glowing moss on the walls. "It grows only near natural openings. If we follow it brighter and brighter, we will find an exit." Daniel nodded. She moved beside him, guiding him through twists and narrow paths. The moss grew brighter the farther they walked. The air became fresher, and the sounds of the forest above grew clearer. But just as hope grew inside them, a distant metallic sound echoed behind them. Saralya tensed. "They have discovered the tunnel." Daniel looked back, eyes narrowing. Faint red lights flickered in the darkness far behind. The raiders were moving fast. "Run," Daniel said. They sprinted through the tunnel, their footsteps echoing loudly. Saralya held her robe with one hand, so it wouldn't slow her. Daniel checked behind them every few seconds, watching the red lights draw closer. After several minutes, Saralya pointed forward. "There, I see light." A faint glow shone ahead. They pushed themselves harder. The tunnel sloped upward, and fresh night air blew into their faces. But just as they neared the exit, a sharp sound rang out, energy bolts hitting the tunnel walls around them. The raiders had arrived. "Keep going," Daniel shouted. Saralya ran toward the opening, climbing over rocks. Daniel stayed behind her, returning fire to slow the raiders. One bolt grazed his shoulder, making him stagger, but he kept moving. Saralya reached the exit first, pulling herself onto the forest floor. Daniel climbed the last few steps, firing one final shot before pulling himself out of the tunnel. Saralya grabbed his arm to help him. The moment he reached the surface, the ground behind him cracked again. More raiders emerged. They ran. The forest was dark but open enough to move quickly. Daniel held Saralya's hand so they wouldn't get separated. The raiders chased them, their glowing visors shining among the trees like red stars. Saralya gasped. "We can't outrun them." Daniel breathed hard but steady. We don't need to outrun them. We need to outsmart them. He pulled her behind a large, moss-covered stone. Stay here a moment. She nodded, trusting him completely. Daniel set the portable shield generator on the ground and activated it. A faint, transparent dome formed. When they get close, this will buy us time. Saralia touched his arm again. You always think of my safety first. It's what matters, he said simply. She opened her mouth to respond, but her words vanished as the raiders closed in. They fired at the shield, but the energy bolts bounced off harmlessly. Daniel used the moment to fire back, hitting 2 raiders and sending the rest ducking behind trees. But the generator was weak. The shield flickered. It won't hold long, Daniel warned. Saralia looked around desperately. Then she spotted something, a narrow crevice between rocks. There! A path! A path! Daniel checked. It was small and hidden, almost invisible unless someone looked closely. Good eye, he said. Let's go. They slipped through the crevice. It opened into a steep passage leading downward. The raiders saw them and chased again. Daniel kept Saralia close, guiding her down the stony passage. The air grew colder, and the moonlight above faded. At the bottom of the passage, the land opened into a large clearing. In the distance, a tall ridge rose, like a black wall. That ridge, Daniel pointed. The outpost is on top. If we reach it, you're safe. Saralia nodded. Then we must reach it together. They started climbing the narrow path leading upward. The raiders followed close behind. Daniel fired occasionally, forcing them to take cover. Halfway up the ridge, a strong wind blew dust into their faces. Saralia stumbled, but Daniel caught her quickly. I'm all right, she whispered. Stay close, he said gently. They climbed higher as the raiders gained ground. At the top, the outpost lights finally came into view, bright beams cutting through the night sky. Saralia gasped with relief. We made it. But the raiders reached the ridge too, firing rapidly. Daniel shielded Saralia with his body as they ran the last stretch. Soldiers from the outpost spotted them. Princess Saralia. Human soldier. Get inside. Daniel and Saralia rushed through the outpost gates just as the guards shut them behind. The heavy metal doors slammed closed, locking out the raiders. Silence followed. Daniel leaned against a wall, breathing heavily. Saralia stood before him, tears forming in her eyes. You saved my life again, she whispered. Again and again. Daniel smiled softly. I promised I wouldn't leave you. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. And I have never trusted anyone the way I trust you. Daniel met her eyes, calm and warm. Good. Because I'm not going anywhere. The raiders faded back into the forest, defeated for the night. But something stronger had risen between them, trust, safety, and a bond forged in danger. Saralia placed her hand over Daniel's. You stood firm when my guards ran. You kept me safe when the world wanted to take me. Daniel gently squeezed her hand. I'll keep standing, for as long as you need me. And under the quiet moonlight of Lithara, the princess and the human soldier finally understood that whatever battles still waited ahead, they would face them not as strangers, but as 2 lives tied together by courage and unbreakable loyalty.